Hello, everybody, and welcome. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's session. This is Gabe Larsen. I'm talking about something interesting today, unlike maybe other times. Today we're talking about inside sales top challenges. We're going to be diving into tools and technology based on some research that we've done in conjunction with some others around what is broken or not working in the inside sales industry. Now, brief introduction on myself. Again, Gabe Larsen here. I run what we call the Inside Sales Labs, cooking up some cool best practices and some research to be able to share to the market. I will be offended if you do not add me on LinkedIn and Twitter. And please, please, please check out our Sales Acceleration podcast on iTunes. Every week we do a couple episodes with some industry thought leaders, talk real problems, real people, real solutions. Definitely take some time to check it out. So let's get into the top. It was posed to me, why are tools and technology a top challenge? I actually think it's a pretty easy answer. If you check out this slide, you will see this is from VB Profiles, and it talks a little bit about the inside sales landscape. But oh my goodness, look at this. Where do I even start? Look at all of these different vendors, all of the different options, all of the overlap that companies have with each other. I mean, it is mind-boggling the amount of competition, the amount of vendors in the inside sales space, and my goodness, most of them are just point solutions. So one does an email, one does text, one does opportunities, one does leads, one does. It is mind-boggling. So I'm not surprised that a lot of us are having issues with tools and technology. Here's a couple stats to back that up. So interestingly, this was something that founder and president Ken Krogh in conversations with CSO Insights in their study put down. CRM usage is going down for the first time in 15 years. This was a pretty big surprise in the latest study that CSO Insights put out there. But if you think about it, it's not too surprising. As you watch reps, you'll find very often that it is difficult to, utilize a CRM and get everything updated so that it can be as effective as possible, because unless it's in there, you can't utilize it and run reports off it. So implicit says that the average rep spends about 4 hours a week updating Salesforce just to make sure their accounts and opportunities are all in place. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. It's just what we've become accustomed to in order to operationalize our sales process. Now, I was in, where was it? It was in Seattle. This is just a couple months ago, and I sit down with the sales leader. We're kind of shooting the bull back and forth about what's going on in their business, and he literally says this to me. I put this quote up there. He says, "I have 17 sales acceleration vendors who offer me point solutions that don't talk to each other, and it's wasting me and my reps' time." And I think this is becoming, again, the problem. I just wanted to blow this up as much as possible. There's so many tools. People are buying a lot of them. There's all this overlap. None of them talk to each other. This guy, this sales leader said, "Gabe, you wouldn't believe what it's like getting 17 different phone calls every quarter wanting to do a quarterly business review on how the texting solution is changing my team's world." So it is getting overwhelming, confusing, and we've got to figure out a solution on how to solve it. So today I want to dive into what we believe qualitatively a lot of people are experiencing or were experiencing as they mentioned or filled out the survey that said tools and technology are a problem. Here's why and how we can fix it. So we've put a 3-step process down here. The first step is understanding your personas. The second step is map or mapping your sales process. And then number 3 is manage change. So I'm going to dive into each of these for just a minute. And the first one is understanding your personas. Now, this is another one, you guys, where, sorry, I must be in a good mood this morning, but I used to actually keep track of this. You know, I've spent a lot of time on the road visiting literally hundreds of companies, looking at different inside sales departments, and everybody has their own name for different roles. And so, again, I used to keep track and try to get a list of names, but I got lost at some point. But you have SDRs and AEs and ADMs and SGCs and VSRs and CSRs and BDRs and BDSs and ISRs and BD. It gets another thing. It gets kind of confusing. It's not a problem, but you've got to be able to recognize what you have and what you don't have. And so, in my opinion, in my belief, I believe that there are some super personas, and it'll help you simplify kind of where you are. And as you think about your technology stack, you've got to start thinking about persona-based technology stacks. It just gets too confusing otherwise. So what I've done here is I've just rolled up all these funky names into 3 super personas or 3 super roles. So you've got your sales development rep, you've got your account executive, that's your closer, the person who actually closed the deal, and then you've got that customer success rep. Now, again, there's a management and et cetera, but I was focusing on the roles that are actually revenue generating. If you can start to figure this out, and there are some intricacies, and I do want to touch on just a couple of those. Oftentimes what you'll find is with these roles, there's a couple key attributes to be aware of. And one is transactional or high velocity versus relational or account-based. And then oftentimes there's an inbound and outbound component or a new business versus existing business component. Those are really key attributes as you think about your technology stack. But if you can get to a place where you can identify those personas and really understand, okay, I mean, we call it, an ADR, but what that is a account-based sales development rep, then you can start to splice out or splinter out and say, okay, for this particular group, what is the technology set that's needed? And I went ahead and thrown down on this slide an option to say, okay, per persona, what is the typical, and I didn't give you vendors. I'm going to let you figure that one out. That's a exercise in of itself, but I do think first and foremost, understanding the key concepts that each persona needs will really get you from first base to second base. Let me just give you a quick example here on sales development. Now, most people start their sales stack with sales development. Why is that? Because that's typically a team that can be a little bit more automated. It's a team that can be a little more process or systems driven, and they usually start with communication. That's where our studies have indicated most companies start there. But some of the key areas that you need to be looking for around sales development is prioritization. How do they prioritize their activities, their leads, their prospects, their contacts? Intelligence. You do not, believe me, I repeat, do not want them going around the internet and trying to find relevant information on Wikipedia and their company website and social sites. You've got to find a way to bring that into one piece if you can. Communication tools, an obvious one, phone, email, voicemail, social tools. How do you keep them motivated, and then how do you actually qualify and pass a calendaring tool or a qualification tool? That would be a solid stack for a sales development rep. Again, prioritization, identifying target accounts, getting the right contacts in there, intelligence, making sure you get the right information, communication, motivation, and qualification. So think about each of those personas, and it's really going to put you in a different place as you think about optimizing your technology stack. Now, step 2 here is mapping your sales process, and I got to admit, I'm a little bit of a junkie when it comes to this concept. I actually just reached a milestone in my career. I've now mapped over 200 processes. You're looking here at my 200th one. I even got a picture with it. That's maybe a little embarrassing, but I collect them. I challenge you to send your process map to me. I probably get one a month from someone on LinkedIn who wants me to review it with them, and I love it. I collect them. Grab me on LinkedIn, send me your process map, and I will take the time to give you my feedback. I have seen inbound, outbound, expansion, strategic sales, high velocity sales. I've seen it all, and I love to look at it. So I'm a big proponent of trying to do that. The problem is this is a quote by the famous person, says everybody here. I've never mapped out my sales process beginning to end. So true. That is so true. I mean, look, I've done this 200 times. I have probably come across literally a handful of companies that could show me a detailed process map. Now, sometimes you'll get someone with 3 boxes, and that's not quite what I'm talking about. I am talking about something a little more granular. But you've got to get that exercise down, and you've got to start doing it. How do you do? I'll give you my quick overview. I typically try to break a sales process into 3 simple phases because, again, I'm not a Six Sigma black belt. I love process. I can't think if I can't visualize it, but make it simple. Don't worry about all the shapes and names and squares and triangles and whatever those other shapes are. Just make it simple. How do you get stuff? What do you do with that stuff? And then phase 3, how do you kind of bring that stuff to a close and get a little more detailed in these 3 phases? And I think you're way further than most companies are. So I'm a big proponent of creating a current state, and this is just a sample. And it follows that same concept there on the left. Where am I getting my leads? How am I, or my contacts, how am I interacting with the contacts in the middle? And then how am I bringing those contacts to qualification and working them down some sort of pipeline? Man, when you get to this spot, it is a gold mine. It's a game changer. You're here, and you all of a sudden are visualizing your sales system. And like I've seen hundreds of times, you will notice things in here like, oh man, it looks like the rep is spending, I was at a client yesterday, 60% of their time researching. Interesting. That's probably not okay. Oh, interesting. They're having a really hard time following up, managing their follow-up. Okay, that's an interesting one. You start to identify these different strengths and weaknesses, and then, and only then, are you ready to move to a future state and start putting in different technology applications to potentially solve some of those weaknesses? And you're seeing that here in this sample future state. All those green boxes are tools or technologies that can be plugged in to solve process deficiencies. And sometimes, I'm not a true salesperson in the sense that I spend all my time selling. We're all salespeople when it comes down to it. But I'll get on the phone a lot with our day-to-day salespeople, and I'll throw this concept out. Sometimes I get, kind of not yelled at, but people get a little angry with me after those calls because I'll say to prospects, you can't just go and buy technology. You've got to show me a process map with your strengths and weaknesses, and then we can talk about what technologies can fill those weaknesses. And so I am a big proponent of that. And to do it, again, I keep it super simple. Know those functional areas. Those are your personas. Are we talking about marketing and sales development and inside sales and outside sales and in customer success? So you need to kind of know the overall structure of your department. Get that basic current state or as is. Find the strengths and weaknesses. Don't make it too complicated. Use triangles, use squares. I don't really care. Use free software. Use paid software. Use PowerPoint. A lot of people don't like it because I'm just stuck with PowerPoint. I'm a big proponent of Lucid Charts. I love those guys, but oftentimes I'll just do it in PowerPoint. It's simple. I don't need to make it crazy complicated. It gets the job done. Everyone can update it and use it themselves. Then you've got to get to that place of future state. And then lastly, if you're serious about this exercise, you do have to get to a place where you have a governance structure to manage that process, where you're reviewing it once a quarter to make sure you're not new inefficiencies haven't popped up, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you get that process down, then identify your technology stack. And I really think it'll become more clear to you as to which tools and vendors you need versus just randomly kind of buying this shiniest object that comes your way. Now, Leslie, I'll just throw out this one point. Actually, on change management, this is a quote I often hear. I bought a phone dialer and my reps are not making more calls. Maybe not says everybody who's ever purchased a phone dialer, but my goodness, it happens very frequently. I get a lot of sales leaders say, I bought this tool and my team is not utilizing it as effective as I thought they would. I bought a scoring tool. In fact, this one happens all the time. They spend all this money on a predictive lead scoring application or predictive account scoring application, and then you sit down with the reps and you ask them, hey, what do you think of that score? Oh, that dumb score. I don't follow that. I follow my gut. Management says it's helpful, but I don't even look at it. So they end up not using a lot of these expensive tools and technologies. So how can you make sure that they do that? And you've got to find a balance here in the sales acceleration space. I don't think you want, it's not ERP. It shouldn't be a full IT staff with, a 12-month implementation plan. And there's got to be a balance, but you're kidding yourself if you think you can just throw the tools to a team, especially a sales team. Like, we're all salespeople, and expect them to just go crazy and adopt it. Salespeople are notoriously cowboys. They like to work in the Wild West. They like to shoot from the hip, use their secret sauce, which is kind of subjective Hail Mary play that miraculously works at times, but most times it doesn't. So you've got to find the balance of change management and give them tools that certainly they want to use and allow them to be somewhat autonomous but also productive. You got to find a way to build around that some training and some governance. And so any project that I'm on, I'm a big believer, double big here, on a governance structure that says, hey, let's not just throw this technology out to the team. Let's get a steering committee. Let's get a success metrics, success criteria, a strategic vision of what we're trying to do with this technology. Let's get an operations committee that's actually tactically going to be involved in the day-to-day to make sure not only the tools get up, we get the reps behind it, and we get excited about the program that's coming down the pipeline. And then this concept of a speed team is just a no-brainer. Again, I don't believe in just rolling out on one day to all 500 sales reps. I do believe, get the technology for all 500 people. That's a great bundled approach. But then start with a persona and say, okay, let's start with our account executive team. Let's just take 10 people from that account executive team. Let's get them on the system. Let's iterate. Let's get them feeling comfortable with what they have. And then once we see that motion is optimized, let's go ahead and roll that out to the rest of that persona. Now let's take another persona and let's do the same motion. And so using this type of structure just puts that cherry on top of making sure that your sales stack actually does become optimized and doesn't sit stale like an old system on the shelf there. So in closing, again, those 3 steps, I'm a firm believer this is a great way to help you optimize your sales stack, understanding those personas, not just assuming that all people are the same. Number 2, really understanding that process map, strengths and weaknesses. And then lastly, don't assume you can just throw technologies to salespeople and have them automatically adopt and automatically use all the best practices. You're probably going to have to find that balance and do some training. And I'm not just talking about how to use the technology. I'm talking about some best practices around it. Make sure that they're using it as appropriate as possible. So really appreciate you taking the time to listen today. I've got to make one plug. Always talking about the latest and greatest on our Sales Acceleration podcast, myself and Steve Ayer. Check us out at InsideSales.com resources/podcast. We're on iTunes, twice a week episodes talking about real problems, real people, real solutions. So have a fantastic day, and thanks so much for listening in.